second.
Meeting can call to order. I will take attendance for the Monroe County Historic Preservation Board review, July 15th. Duncan Campbell. Susan Snyder-Salmon.
Present.
Polly Ruth Sturgeon.
Here.
Don Hall.
I'm here.
Debbie Reed.
Here.
Doug Wilson. Devin Blankenship.
Here.
Don Maxwell.
Here.
Uh, 6 members in person, that constitutes quorum. Okay. So I do not have any minutes for you all this month. You
What,
did
do
not
you have an
know.
excuse, you've been busy or something?
Yeah, if you did not know, the county servers were down for a week, so it was my time. But I will be setting aside some time to get caught up on these. I know I'm behind. We've got some administrative business. And we have some representatives from the North Park petition here this evening as well as Daniel Butler on the call line. And we have some new resources from that item. So scroll to page 4. Extremely zoomed in. So the developers provided this additional resources, kind of conveying, I believe, the slopes of the area, and I think that they have more information to convey or here for any questions that we all may have for this. It is going to the Plan Commission tomorrow evening at 5:30. And we still have that existing letter that's in the packet for this petition from the last time it was heard at Plan Commission. And we do know, Devin, your comments were read into the record at the last meeting.
I think anything, because there was a little bit of confusion just because the first letter, there were parts of it that had maybe shifted during that time period, and then we throw in my comments. So I don't know, whatever we do with this meeting to help make kind of perhaps one document or one kind of universal thing to maybe even like cancel out the initial letters and any extraneous previous comments, just as to not confuse. Yeah, because there was a bit of confusion the last time.
I think the goal is to provide an updated letter. I know it'll be too late to get in the packet, obviously, based off of the maps and things that we're seeing tonight. We're just waiting on the maps.
As we look at this, just because my experience level is not extraordinarily gifted at this point, I'm looking at this as State Road 37. Is this a new map or an old map? Because State Road 37 hasn't been there for a while. This is a new.
59.
Yeah, this is 37/69.
Okay.
And I believe the kind of tell for the ramp is as well.
So that's 46.
So where the ramp isn't, that really is, and so it's current. It's just not a current map that it's, okay.
That's just on road name labelings, it's just says 37, but doesn't have 69
Okay.
there.
Thank you all for providing those. That's what we talked about last time. Yeah.
Kind of, point a couple things out, and show if that helps.
Yeah.
I look at these every day, this type of thing, so. Drew, if you can go back to the original, the first one there. So this is our fill area here. One thing I wanted to know, because I think there's a perception that we're building a hill. This property right here, this is not ours, this is Hannah Properties LLC. This flat elevation up here is 820. And that's already there. So you can drive out and see that, but you can't see it because it's below. And we only go down from there. So nothing will be higher than what's already right there.
So 820 would be the highest anything would be in that section.
Yeah, right here at this corner, kind of where we match into their property is at 820. And that's our highest point, and then we slope down from there.
And nothing would go above 820.
No, with what the counters are right here, that's what it's set at. 820 is the high point.
And I think one of the challenges that we face in all of this is that 820 Hannah property was, to my knowledge, never seen or discussed before this body ever. So essentially,
That was built with
we're
us.
working with something that pre-existing, but pre-existing for how long? So that I think is part of the issue we're kind of trying to find the middle ground of. Yeah.
So, and then if you want to slide to the next one, and I know this is kind of hard to view and visualize. We tried to do the best we could to make it visual. So here's our fill. That's what this is out here. This piece back here would be the Hannah property. And then we're coming across here. Here's the ramp here. And then we're coming across here, and then you see, there was a question about the slope and, how steep the slope was, because the contour lines end up so close because it's a big site. But you can see it's a much more gradual slope than the contour lines up here. So we tried to do the best we could to try and convey it visually a little
No,
bit.
having this view is very good for us to see, because
Okay.
otherwise, I think with those tight contour lines, they do kind of get lost in the scale of that, of a property that size.
Yeah. So is there anything else I can?
And then there's another one of these, so from this side,
Yeah, so this would be looking kind of towards the south. What would that, AJ?
Southwesty.
Yeah, southwest, yeah. So you can see it's kind of here and then gravels off, and then this is all the area that we're not filling. That's part of the designated in the commitments as staying the way it is there.
and then over here to the right, is there a roadway? Is this, okay, so that's Long Hole right there. And so then the property line is over here, the western property line is over here.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's actually quite a ways over that way and up the hill.
Okay. And so we're kind of looking at it from the 46 side looking south.
Yeah,
Not right, over
yeah, that would be correct.
You're getting on to Interstate 46.
Yeah, very.
Well, if you have any other questions or that, we can try and answer them, but that's what we're trying to depict and show. Anything else? AJ made them, he's better than mine, so.
I think one thing on the plan. Go to the first drawing there, that road on the left side. That road will eventually, according to the PUD, come up and turn to the left right there by about that 757 elevation. And so that's kind of a requirement of the PUD anyway, to have this road.
That road will,
So to cross that creek, that road is eventually gonna have to be filled to either do a bridge or a culvert or whatever is required by the permit eventually to cross that stream. And then when you do that, all of the property, around it is obviously gonna be much lower. So that's not shown because that's not part of the plan at this.
Yeah, that's, we're not,
Not
and
part
we're
of
not
our plan.
developers, we're not building the road, that's not our plan, but
But it will need to be built in the future regardless to cross that stream.
I really appreciate your effort to give us that scale. That's helped me visualize much
No
better.
Road in that location would be going through the designated spot, so that'll be a future issue.
It should be just
Just south of it or north?
fairly south of it, I think. Yeah, yeah, that map isn't in there this time, but I think it's just outside of that. We
Gotcha.
obviously didn't want to include that for that reason to make it, because that has to be done at some point.
Yeah.
yeah, I think Daniel Butler's online. Last time he couldn't talk, maybe he can hear us this time if
Yeah, you see like.
he has anything.
This is Daniel with Bynum Fanio. Did you guys have a question for me?
We can hear you. That's good. That's a good start.
I think we just want to make sure that you were connected in case there were questions or you had something to add.
Nothing to add at this time. We, as you had already stated, we just worked hard on maps to just give you a more visual of what actually will happen there, and that we want to commit to this grading. Also give you historic preservation on the north side of our property to commit to as well.
I know as a board, prior to the last meeting, we had talked about that if this were to be approved at the planning stage, we would want to have a condition of approval to submit this northernmost region, the historic area, for historic designation. Is that something you all would be willing to do? So that's like a county layer that would go on that property.
Yeah, I mean, what's the process of doing that? I just don't know.
You want to tell them?
Yeah, so it's like a rezone process where you go through a rezone application and adds an overlay to a specific portion or the entirety of a property. In this case, it would be a certain portion. And what it does is it provides local protections over that specific area of those specific resources that are deemed historic and that deserve to be preserved. So what that would mean for structures would mean if you would want to make any alterations to those structures, you'd have to go through a process with this board for a certificate of appropriateness, basically matching the architectural style, things like that. I don't know what that would really look like for a landscape area. I think that it would pretty much be the same sort of conversation of a certificate of appropriateness if you wanted to grade or change any of the old limestone that was left after it was quarried. That there'd be some similar process like a certificate of appropriateness. But it's a pretty straightforward process.
Yeah, I was just more wondering about the process of how to do it. It sounds, I didn't know if it was a county process, state process, or what, but yeah, I think in our commitments, we're committed to
Doing that.
doing that,
I think so.
that area out there. I think we've already
Yeah.
designated that. And
It's morphed from a recommendation of a condition of approval into, well, they'll just put it in their written commitments, which are binding when they finish out the
Okay.
project before they finish it, so.
Yeah, and then on our side, we have the recommendation from the state, from the I-69 study period, where they recommended that we nominate it as a National Register landscape district. So we have some of their documentation that then we can dovetail into
okay.
your
I
process.
think that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It was something national that had to be
Yeah,
done or something like that. And that-
Yeah, because federal funds were being used, part of their study was to essentially a mile from the center line each direction, study what the National Register eligible properties there might be. And so they go through and they recommend those in the process, because they also have to recognize if they're going to be tearing any of those down, what's there that they're tearing down. So essentially anything within a mile of the center line of I-69 was studied back at that point in time. So this would definitely be part of that.
Daniel, I don't know if you can hear me, but, and I don't have my commitments in front of me, but exactly what we had said about that in there, I think we were preserving that area to the north, weren't we?
Yes, we were committing to preserving that area to the north with designated areas now, whatever kind of commitment, whether that's legal or map or whatever, we don't mind, I believe, it is a part of a commitment document that the plan commission will also see, but whatever I think this board would come up with, I don't want to speak for Mark, but I believe we would be open to.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure the language was was accurate, so it wasn't just a commitment as a organization, but a legal, a county
To a
commitment.
process.
So that in the future, 50 years from now, when it's a different landowner, it's still protected.
And I think these renderings help a lot because one of the things that we've learned, and I know this read in the comments last month, we have learned that trees are not reliable mitigation. That's really hard for us to enforce. So especially when we have pre-existing trees in the right of way of I-69, blah, 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 blah. So I think seeing that the slope is a lot more gradual than what we might have assumed from the contour lines, very helpful to have those.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you making those for us.
Would the trees be protected as part if it went to the historic? Would that be protected as well or not?
No,
Put that designation up there.
no, I think that to clarify, what we've learned is that an agreement to plant trees does not protect having trees as a buffer in perpetuity. Agreement would be to plant, maintain, restore, replace, maintain trees.
Because, yeah, essentially, like, if the concern we're still, and I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody, so feel free if somebody disagrees with me. If the concern was still like, oh, that's really steep and that's a really steep thing to see. We know that trees as mitigation is not necessarily our most reliable path as a county entity. That being said, the protection of the landscape district would really be focused on landscape as a limestone heritage site and the activity related to that. So essentially the fact that we are still able to see quarried spaces and the landscape as influenced by that activity. That's really the significance of that site. Okay. So some scraggly cedar tree from 20 years ago is not gonna be the top priority.
The only reason I was asking was like, if you go out there now and stop on the highway and take a picture, I mean, you don't see any of that. You see the trees, right?
Yeah.
And so if that's part of the protections, would that always be there? But then also if you want in the future to see it, you would have to remove some of the trees to be able to see it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if we, at any given moment, we can only go based on what we know. If we read some epic historic tale of the significance of the oak tree next to the such and such quarry, and, whatever, there might be a difference in that, but we're separate from get to it. But yeah, I doubt there's gonna be protected, any of that new growth that would be things that have popped up since, 37 was initially built and then 69 and the 46 extension. So I think we're pretty safe there.
Yeah, as I recall, a lot of that is locust, which is an invasive anyways.
There's a lot of sycamore in there, to poplar, willow, those sorts of things.
And even considering those stacks of limestone and things like that, seeing them as, part of the appeal. So, we wouldn't necessarily want to cover that up if we could avoid it.
We want to have someone draft a new letter. We want to just take these comments. Will anyone want to attend the meeting tomorrow and speak on some of these items? Or want to just, with the knowledge that there's a written commitment, not say anymore at the plan commission meeting?
I'm willing to write a letter to include that basically says, based on what we have seen, the commitment to preserve the northern portion. I don't know if we have a specific.
There's a map.
Yeah,
I can
According to the
Yeah.
attached map.
Yeah.
Satisfies the, it's part of the Historic Preservation Board.
Okay.
I don't know, is there anything else people want to throw in there?
Oh, we also want to make sure we put in the local designation,
Yes,
which I think is there now.
yeah. So I'll try to get that done tonight and put that out there to people in case there's any edits or additions we need to add before the meeting, but we know it won't be part of the packet, but it will help. Then I think clarify our current position after all these findings over these last couple months and ability to have discussion and see different renderings and things like that, so.
Is everyone in favor of that? I'm in favor of approving it with the designation overlay.
I
am.
Drew, is there any value to having one of us read this letter tomorrow since it's not in the packet?
That's always a possibility as a public comment. You can just read the letter itself. But what happens when there's a resource that gets added late before or after the packet is published, staff brings enough printed copies for all the planning commission members, as well as we'll provide a digital copy to any members attending virtually. And then we'll also print off several extra copies for people that are in the meeting room. So usually we pause for a little bit so that letters or other things like that can be read or reviewed. But it's also nice to have sometimes someone to speak on it as well.
My day is pretty packed and if you think it's essential, I could possibly carve out time, but sounds like we're okay.
I think it would be essential for someone to speak about the letter specifically, only if the petitioner was resistant to what the letter was requesting.
I don't get that sense, yeah.
No, I think earlier in the process, when we were still trying to find and figure things out, it was more essential, but I feel like once we're to this stage, you know what we're saying.
Yeah.
They know what we're saying, we know what we're saying. So I think it's, I'll go ahead and type up a letter and then get it out to everybody for comment or additions, and then we'll make sure that.
And what time of the meeting?
At 5:30, it's in the Nat U Hill
You're on the
room,
timetable.
in the Monroe County Courthouse.
If something comes up.
Gotta go, okay.
I'd be interested in seeing when this goes to the commissioners
Mhm.
after the planning stage, just to
Okay.
see if they have, because one of the things I think we've talked about as a board is keeping the idea of the Limestone Heritage Park alive and present in their minds.
Yeah,
So I'd be interested in attending that.
I think that having some members in attendance bring that notion up be a good reminder that they should remember.
Yeah, no, and I think what better time to designate the county side of things than at the time we're working with these property owners to designate their side as well, so.
I would hope that in the letter, you could state or somewhere add, or you probably already have this in your notes about the national designation. You know, on both sides, the highway and all that. I think that's terribly important.
About it in the first letter. Well, thank you all again for providing these maps. Very useful.
Thank you for being willing to discuss it and come up with something.
Yeah.
We really appreciate that.
The maps help. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
back and doing that. Thank you.
Our
Thank you.
next, thank you, Daniel. Our next administrative item is the CLG annual report form. So our final due date is July 19th. They've told me that even if there are pieces missing, to turn it in anyways, get the other pieces in afterwards. So please, if you have not submitted all of your continuing education credits into the spreadsheet, please do so. Let me know if you need any help with that, or if you just want to send me an email, what you did, I can put it in for you, things like that.
I sent you a couple of things. Was there anything else you needed?
And then the other thing, I sent out a email about some language that I was seeking from certain individuals. I think Polly and Susan were the main ones. Susan, I got some from you.
Yeah.
About just explaining what we did during that time period. There was a few things
I
that,
kept it really short.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's all they're really looking
So
for.
are there still holes?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a good look tonight and tomorrow as well. And if I find any holes, I will send out an email blast immediately. But we're pretty much, we're like 90% done. So we're looking good. Thank you for all your help in that. So,
Well, I am going to be on the road tomorrow and Wednesday.
Okay.
Can't reach Polly and there's a question,
Okay.
don't hesitate to call me. I should have phone service on my 15-hour drive,
Okay.
but
Thank you. Being available. Okay, so that's that, unless anyone else has anything to add to that right now. Okay, next I have on page 8. Page 8, we have a potential road name change. So turning on top of these, anytime a road name change even gets talked about, I want to bring it to you guys. This one is fairly simple. So this is East Chester Drive, and it doesn't actually loop around like this. So this change request is coming from emergency services. They've had several instances coming out here and not knowing which houses were which. So this map that you're seeing right now is their suggestion of adding these new numbers where the white boxes are structures. And what they are requesting, and this is in coordination with the property owner or owners, they're wanting to change it from East Chester Drive to East Coppers Hill Drive. So I don't believe that didn't immediately stand out to me as anything historic.
On Coppers Hill.
East Chester's Drive continues to the west. As I think that's part of the confusion is that it's like it's a very large road, long road. And it just connecting here briefly with Tecumseh and then continuing on again might be causing some of that complication.
What is that, like, northwestern little loop? What road is that? Is that also Chester?
The loop here is what's on the GIS map and it's all Chester Drive. But according to the emergency services who have been out on site several times, this red section is actually not road. It
But the
may
parts
have
to the
been
left,
to the left.
what, that's also Chester Drive?
Oh, this road here?
Yeah, this,
Top part.
That part,
Oh,
yeah.
top part. Yes, this is all Chester Drive.
So you just want to change the bottom.
How does changing the name make that any clearer?
Good point.
That it's fork and
Both sides.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I believe their goal is like Chester Drive technically, or the new one, East Coppers Hill, will essentially be like this road. And then these are driveways that all go to these different houses.
is there a Coppers Hill there?
what is that?
you know, what's.
I don't see
what's
a
the-
hill.
I do not know. I got this from the addressing coordinator. Coppers could be something significant to maybe one of the property owners. Otherwise, I'm not familiar with the name. I did check our addressing database and there was nothing similar other than I think it was Copper Beach, I think is a development in the city. But nothing like Coppers Hill.
Is it actually
Where is this?
I think it is actually Hill. I think it goes up. I think this all goes up into these areas.
Tecumseh, where is that?
That's look,
I can pull open another map.
Ellisville, just east of Park Street.
Oh,
So you're kind of back in the north of, or sorry. Throwing it off. It's west. I'm used to inversely looking at this from my world.
It looks like it's up on the bluff looking over the main, it's from up above looking down on town.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So sorry, it's west of Park Street and north of Ratliff.
Here's Chester. So Tecumseh ends and branches off into East Chester Drive that goes northwest.
oh, no wonder
And
it's.
then also East Chester Drive, which is this
I think
loop,
it's
but
like-
is not a real loop.
They're gonna change that loop part, the name?
They're gonna change this portion here, yeah.
That's because these houses 564 and 552 are off of that,
Yes, if you look on here.
and 563.
On the sheet,
See that.
these are numbers that they are suggesting that get changed. And then on the screen here, is the existing numbers. So they are not in sequence whatsoever. So as soon as you get into this area, it's all, you don't know which number's what.
Herbley Gerbley.
So that's why they're requesting change. And instead of just new numbers, they're saying just rename it as well, because if we just change the numbers around, it could still lead to confusion. So just blanket sweep over new name, new numbers,
Yeah.
and go from there.
Yeah, I think my curiosity would be like, well, where are they getting this name from? I mean, and there's a myriad of potentially valid answers.
Label there.
It makes sense that they would have to redo the addresses and just, we don't talk about addresses a whole lot, but it seems like the county has just about gotten things squared away with directionals and road names and addresses and, things like that, especially when it comes to
The post office.
new interpretations and things like that. One of the tricky parts here is, and Drew, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. This postally Ellisville, but planning wise Monroe County. Or it's fully Ellisville.
I believe it's, mostly, I think it's, Ellisville, as in like the city is named Ellisville in but it is
Yep.
an island spot.
Okay, so it's county planning.
So this is all Ellisville. Up here, everything that's not colored, I believe is
Okay.
Ellisville.
So it's just one of our islands out there.
Yes.
So then we have to then consider the numbering system and it'll change again when you're looking at Ellisville, Steinsville, Gosport, addresses in our county.
Yes, so the initial request for this came from a representative of Ellisville Fire.
I can see why.
And the fire department in Ellisville is actually in charge of their addressing. So he would have just done it already himself, but it's a little island spot, so.
Well, I appreciate us being able to be included.
Yeah.
I would hate for just little questions like who are they naming it after to slow that process down at all. In this case where it's,
I'm Googling this and I don't see anything that really stands out as a huge association pro or con.
Yeah.
There's a Scrooge McDuck comment about Copper Hill, but I think that's kind of cool. And there might be a cheese shop in England or something. I don't see anything here.
I'm assuming it has some meaning to one of the property owners.
yeah, if it's a Ellisville Fire Department decision and the other property owners aren't coming forward kicking and screaming about that name.
Mhm.
I think it's a pretty good shape for approval from us.
I question, and again, forgive my ignorance, a road change, all neighbors and all property owners are notified. We have an opportunity to provide feedback.
Name change requests are an official petition that go to the plan commission. So it gets the whole full-blown,
So all of those property owners and all of the adjacent property owners have had an opportunity.
I don't know if you could say they've all had an opportunity, but the fire representative from the fire department stated that the name Coppers Hill came from a neighbor or neighbors. I don't remember which one.
Is it Copper or Cooper?
Oh, it says copper, just copper here.
Property owner is Cooper.
Well, the address coordinator said Copper. It could be a typo. I think on here, it's also it's
Got it right there.
it says Copper right here, Copper. I can verify that.
I think that's important because our puppy's name is Cooper and I know how it's spelled. It's with,
It has the, two of the lots, I'm still looking at, have, January 1st, 1900, which we don't need, nothing. Name is Betty Cooper.
I will verify that.
That's a good catch on that one.
Yeah, because the Google search kept saying, do you mean Cooper's Hill? I thought, no.
Which would be kind of cool, if, maybe that's the original property. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
I will clarify.
and it's very easy for things to like that slowly drift, like for example, we have Lee Hall, which should be the Hall, gas station there. Caldwell Hall.
Or Elevate could be wrong, but.
There is a Cooper Court off of, nearby, off of Chandler.
Okay.
But maybe they went with Copper as opposed to Cooper because of the confusion there. Yeah, I guess.
Well, for addressing protocol, the apostrophe has to be eliminated and then a suffix has to be added, so hence drive. So it can't just be
Yeah,
Copper or Cooper Hill, it has to be
So it would have to be whatever.
Cooper Hill Drive.
yeah. And I know for a while, the county, the address committee, which they'll still fire people could probably care less about, the address committee, really avoided some of those landform names. Cause they're like, we have so many roads with that in there. It's like, well, because we have so much of that landform. That's why. Like Ridge, I know Ridge was one, but they're like. And Creek.
Right.
On Stall Creek, right next to Rush Ridge, right? That's insane. You're fine.
Nothing runs through Copper along the
So, yeah, I think it'd be interesting to know if they really mean Cooper,
Okay, yeah, I'll verify that.
because the modern neighbors might not quite remember
I'd like to add, I don't have any objection for this at all, but I am so pleased that it came before this board. Thank you very much. Ellisville is, and Steinsville, very, very old, lots of history. And the historic roads, as well as other things, are terribly important to me and everyone, a lot of other people. And so thank you very, very much for us allowing time for this. Thank you.
Yep, in my time here, I've learned that anything that I'm reading before this board could be a well of information suddenly. So
Yeah.
any one of you could look at this and be like, oh, I can talk about 20 minutes that property is.
There's a lot of things that have happened.
I bet if I went far around, I would find some good limestone there to build a fence with.
Well, and it's also interesting because between the resources that we have, whether it's county GIS or other, oral history or other resources, certain things become very clear, as we shake them out as to what they are and what they aren't. And I'd be impressed that even on like Google Maps, sometimes I will see names of hollows and ridges that I've never seen anywhere else. And so I think it's important that we continue to use those as resources. And just as a side comment, I hope in our county's future that we are much more conscientious and aware on indigenous tribe naming and things like that. Because that was definitely an era unto itself that I hope we if almost any of those other names are coming in like, we'd like to change it to this one, that maybe makes more sense, it'd be like, yes, please.
Great. Old business items, A through G on the agenda. I don't have any updates. That includes the High Street multi-use path. I do know there has been some movement on, but I've not received anything.
I was drafted a letter, but I feel like it needs to add more content to it, just so give them more to work with.
Okay. The State Road 446, it goes into Brown County. I've not received any additional information on that. Bloomington Ops Tower, I would assume that one has faded away. We openly rejected that proposal and I've not heard anything since. I've not seen any petitions come through the county planning office for a wireless communication facility there. On ramp to I-69 via West Arlington Road. I do know that work is still underway on that. I don't have any updates other than that project is progressing.
On E, I will say that somebody sent me a picture that work had been done. My understanding was that the walls were outside the zone, but the picture I saw did not make me feel confident that something had not happened to the wall that's there. So I'll do a drive, I just haven't been in town to do a drive-by to
Sorry,
see.
Fullerton Pike.
Yeah, you're talking, yeah, I think, right? Instead of eight.
I'm talking F, yes, I
Yeah.
thought we were ready to go to F.
And as far as things like the on-ramp goes, have you identified anywhere that like letters were getting stuck or not being conveyed? Because like, I'm just wondering if they're like going to an old email address or, you know, something like that, because we're not always lucky enough to have an adjacent property. up
Yeah.
board.
So I don't know where the breakdown and information in that one came from. I think it's a state project. So I'm surprised that I did not receive a section 106 letter for that project. And the other individuals that would have received that notice would have been Tammy at the planning office, who would have just forwarded it to me, or Danielle. And Danielle has forwarded me stuff before. Asked me to work on getting her name taken off those things, which I totally understand. So it would be surprising to me if either of them had received something and did not send it. So I really don't know what that one.
Yeah.
That one's a shocker.
Like, I'm almost wondering, and it's good that we have those, you know, those people who are still able to do that. It almost makes me wonder, is there a like general email address that those should be going to that's like historic preservation or, you know, something, you know, at Monroe. Just because it's tough for any of you who switch positions. And I know nobody would deliberately keep something from us, but you know, if you get 8,000 emails a day, then it's tough for anybody to stay on top of that. And it seems like we sort of hit a point where in the last few years, we just stopped getting section 106 stuff.
Where does the website, there has to be an email for the ownership of the website. Yes,
Like the general county email
so
or our email.
I'm just wondering if there's a generic
I think we're under.
email that's associated with the website that could become an add-in to 106.
Oh, Limestone Heritage, I don't remember.
The other one is under, it might be under planning.
Hello.
Our site is not the most user-friendly on the planet.
So I believe this is just, since it's under planning department, just, and I can try, this is what I was going to say, is I can try to see about broadcasting that the official email address for the Historic Preservation Board is the planning office general email. That way it would go to all planning individuals. That's the director all the way down to the zoning inspector. That might be helpful.
Keep trying to put the person who is the direct contact, keep adding that in, but have that umbrella name in there. I think that makes some good sense.
Yeah, because it could even be that certain consulting firms just have us as somebody's specific.
Where they have Danielle.
Yeah, so.
You know what I sent you, what was it, almost a year ago? The way our company got on that list where we get the packets and all, it goes back to the I-69 in 2012. And we were allowed to put our name on that list, and it's from the state.
Okay.
So I will go back and look and see what I can find tomorrow. But then if you all keep any of the correspondence, you might look too. We'll see if we can come up with, you know, if we could get on that list, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this something that would be related to turning in a report that we could say, we appear to be missing things, can you ensure that we're getting, like, you know, we're giving you what you want. We're finding that we may have been missing some things. Can you check on your end just to make sure that those holes are plugged because we've gotten holes in our data.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the,
Very nicely put, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm not sure if the individual that's in charge of CLG reports this year would be the correct person, but she can at least
She'll
convey
go
that
look into that.
information to the right. Because I can see where contractors would likely go to the state to figure out that list of information.
Yeah, just where I go.
And that's, let's say, anytime you see anything that like maybe going to happen, getting ready to happen, thinking about happening, somebody put up pink flags, we'll just try to be proactive about it on the front end here as we can to get on those lists. Which reminds me, in addition to our culvert conversation with Indiana Avenue, there's a whole discussion on pedestrian bicycle friendliness of Indiana Avenue that we might want to be a part of. Because I have a feeling that historic materials might come into play in the discussion.
Okay.
So even though it's Indiana Avenue, it's in the city, but if we were. Yeah.
I don't think they're taking the gables down or anything.
No, but they're probably gonna do 46 bike lanes and something, but no, I feel like it might be the most historically appropriate option, and if you want cars to slow down, et cetera, brick. So should be about it. My humble opinion. Make it two-way, make it brick again. But yeah, I know that those conversations at the city level have started. And also just to, sorry if this is out of sequence. There has been discussion with the IU property on South Dunn Street that has the Pioneer sidewalk in front of it that was reset by BRI some years ago. That discussion has come up again for accessibility purposes of how does someone navigate the sidewalk? And so that's something that's out in either. Nicely enough, there's enough width on the property that they can probably build a modern sidewalk next to the Pioneer sidewalks. It's just one of those. I don't have any other known Pioneer sidewalks that I'm aware of. If you stumble upon a Pioneer sidewalk anywhere, then
What is the Pioneer Center?
it's basically stone set in the ground.
Like the old hopscotch stuff?
This is rougher than that. This is kind of just big chunks of stone, yeah. But if you want to see, there's the property a block from the law school, a block west of the law school on Dunn Street, going up the hill. You can see the Pioneer sidewalk in front of it. It's an IU owned house. Yeah. The alleyway goes up to the law school parking.
So it's hard for wheelchairs or something?
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, I think it's a reasonable, when you're looking at ADA, it's a reasonable discussion to have. It's just they want the property down. That was. But those are some things we might want to keep our ears and eyes open for.
I don't have any updates for item F or to pipe interpretive signage. I don't have any updates for G, which is the bridge number 83 on West Dillman over Clear Creek.
On F, I've gotten through another 5 meetings and haven't found it, so I know I'm getting close.
Sounds good. That brings us to item H, which is in the packet. And this is the Thomas HP overlay rezone. It's one parcel totaling 0.74 plus or minus acres in Salt Creek Township, Section 5. It's at 6056 East State Road 46. So the last where we left this off, there was good discussion at the last meeting, having the property owners do some more research into the tax record, as well as any other resources that they could find about the age of the structure. So I did add some new exhibits into the staff report, including some property photos, as well as the original land patent for William Gregg Allen from the federal office. Some property tax records included here as well, exhibit 7. And then grave site of William Gregg Allen, which I believe is out of state now. Then a few newspaper article clippings about the Arbutus that the petitioner all provided. So they are on the calls. They are open to any questions.
And Doug did an email, right?
Doug did some research.
So I took that and I've been dabbling, trying to extend that to see if there were, persons that are related that are not stated. And I haven't been able to spend too much time on it, but I've gotten started on it.
So I'm gonna.
And was that passed on to the petitioners?
Yes, I believe they were included in that email thread. Doug had done a little bit of research and didn't find anything that was outstanding.
Do we have date for when the B and B was started?
70s is what they said, but I don't recall a more specific time. I don't see the property owners, by the way, on this trip, Doug.
You don't? Oh, from the message from Doug? Okay. I believe it was a fairly brief message, if you just want to read it into the record, if you don't mind.
Sure. So this is from Doug Wilson on June 17th. Gang, here's what I found on the William G. Allen house on East 3rd Street. William G. Allen, born 1822 in Ohio, died 17 of October 1888 in Kansas. Buried at Sunset Cemetery, Manhattan, Riley County, Kansas. Married Isabella Harton with various spellings. 7 of January 1847 in Monroe County, Indiana. She was born in Ireland circa 1832, died the 21st of September 1895 in Kansas. They had children: Mary Jane, Nancy E., William, Margaret, Henry James, Robert John, Joseph Hardin, Newton Calvin, and Matthew Josiah. He was drafted into Company I, the 38th Indiana Volunteer Infantry Regiment, mustered in on September 21st, 1864. His home is listed as Greensburg, Indiana at the time. He mustered out the 29th of June, 1865. In the 1850 census, couldn't find him. The 1860 census, he was listed in Sand Creek Township of Decatur County, Indiana as a farmer. 1870 census, listed in Rushville, Rush County, Indiana, listed as a farmer, and both of his parents are listed as foreign born. And 1880 census, listed in Wamego, Potawatomi County, Kansas. So he wasn't in Monroe County very long. He married Isabella. This part, sorry, that was the end of the email. But to summarize, he was married to Isabella in 1847, and by 1860, he was listed in the Decatur County, Indiana. So.
And I responded to that the same thing. He didn't stay here long, which is why I thought maybe there was a family member that may have had more impact going forward. So I'll continue to work on that. I also, the reason I asked for when do we know that B&B started, I was looking for TripAdvisor to see what date. Because we have to rethink 50 years was 1974. We need to not be mired in the 1800s here. There was this huge surge of B&Bs, and this may well have been a B&B of renown. And rather than cut that off as an option, I think we probably ought to suggest that they see what they can find. I mean, if it was there in 1974, find out where it fit into that movement. It was huge to have these, and they had a great impact on communities and tourism. So it's just my thinking.
A thought I've had about this too is perhaps the property belonged to his wife, who inherited it maybe through her family, but she, as a woman, couldn't be the principal property owner, so it ended up in his name.
Good point. Good point.
And that's why I'm kind of looking at collaterals and seeing how, so I need more time. Not an easy process.
I would also go out on a limb to add to Doug's findings that the woman's maiden name is possibly the son's middle name, Hardin, Hardin.
Could be related to the Hardys.
It's a whole.
They're all Salt Creek folks, Hardin, yeah.
Well, I feel like it's less likely to misspell a middle name than misinterpret history maiden name.
I will, next time I go in, I'll look at her very closely, see what I can see if she's related to the Hardins of Salt Creek.
Yeah, you're gonna be born in Ireland. Why did it happen?
But am I missing something? I mean, 1974 weekend.
70, well, let's see what's the, get on the address again. What's the address?
6056 East State Road 46. I'm not I think the petitioners are on the call. I don't know if they might know Dave, the B and B.
Yeah, because I know we saw some date in there because we talked about some of those interior and exterior finishes that were definitely part of that, like 70s ranch, Spanish revival era. And so I'm thinking that we might be able to, based on the property owners, we've got Melvin and Julia Taylor in 1977. And even though 1977 was not 50 years ago, he says reading into a paperback, it's a significant amount of time if that was the start of the B&B.
The 70s was it. I mean, it was a hot time.
Yeah, do you guys happen to know if the Taylors ran it as a B&B?
That's not listed. I know we were able to get, from the Monroe County History Center Research Library, the tax records, which seem to be super helpful.
Okay.
Which I think those are included here in your packet. But so we have the original purchase of the land in 1851 from Mr. Allen, from the federal government. And then the tax records, they did indicate that they're so old, they're not searchable by database. So they had to go through and look for them, I guess off the microfilm. And they did find in 1854, William Allen owned this property. In 1859, there is a jump. It's about 150% on the improvement side and 240% hike on the property side. So we believe that to be an indication that that was when the structure was built.
That would make sense.
And it also coincides with a lot of the research that we've done around these I homes that seem to exist during this time period in the States, starting with I. And the layout of this house matches that it's 2 rooms deep, the 2 stories, the multiple fireplaces, and just kind of the humble nature of these types of farmhouses. So all of that tends to line up for us in terms of the time period, and then especially finding these tax records. And it does show that William G. and Isabella Allen own this property together, because it shows that they sold it to John Anderson
1862.
in 1862. So it looks like Mr. Allen held it for what is that? About 11 years. He bought it in 1851. And he was a farmer. So our conjecture is that he did build a structure and lived here during that time.
I think that's great evidence for the age of the house. Work on looking through the records for that.
Yeah,
That was pretty fun. Yeah.
It was a volunteer, Lee Iman from at the History Center.
Well, he is amazing.
Did
Yeah,
this.
he did a great job.
Did this for us, which was just super exciting to finally really come across something that kind of helped pin down the age of the house and how long Mr. Allen owned the property. So yes, that's great. So that's kind of like our big really like our two main things that we kind of updated for our application is the tax record and then some of the photos I took of the beams that's down in the basement,
Those are all
the hand hewn beams.
I would say, just in my experience, and I'm always willing to be proven wrong if I'm wrong on it. I would say that your house, while it is contemporary of the time period of houses tend to be kind of taller and skinnier. So that's why I think yours is more about Central Hall house, but they're from the same era. And so one of the tricky things we get into with architecture is it's just like almost any other fashion where it might be popular in one part of the country and then takes a while to spread. And so a lot of our houses in Indiana are generally later than the 1860s. We do have what year is? South Rogers, my bachelor, Edgewood teacher.
Talk about that, I don't know.
Why co-authored the book on the murals. Anyway, their house. I think their house might be 1860s house. But that could be pretty rare in Monroe County. So I would continue probably between all of us digging a little bit more just to make sure that we're comfortable with the description of house versus central parlor. Because you're right on about the symmetry and things like that. Those are characteristics. Definitely characteristics you'd find in an house. But a lot of times an house is going to be your house plus your house on top.
Oh.
Got it. Okay.
So that doesn't mean you're wrong. That just means that generally speaking, that's how they look. So we can toy around with that a little bit more and make sure that we've got it documented as best we can.
Well, and just the obvious conclusion for me is that the tax records show the improvements jumped from 1875 to 77, and that property owner was Skirvin. And it may be a time to look at the Skirvin family. That's also a very local name.
Oh, okay.
So it may be that by looking at Allen, we're missing the opportunity to see where the Skirvins come in, who may indeed have built the house, as opposed to Allen, who didn't seem to have a home here. He was living over in Greenfield.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a huge jump in money and tax assessments.
On that tax form, and I can't find it now because there's so many things. On that tax form, it has a little code next to it. Do we know what that code means? It's like U something.
Oh, yes.
Whatever's on the screen. Yep. Okay. W169. Do we know what U169 means?
I don't. This was the research that Lee emailed us. I need to ask him that question.
Well,
I don't know if
The
that's a record.
U169 is just a locator number.
Yeah,
And it's the deed book.
Deed book and page number.
Okay, because I was wondering if that's where we could see if that was telling us, is that a structure or whatever. Okay, so that's a deed book and page number.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could look at other properties around that time period and see if that 375 is comparable to structures that we know were built around that time period. Say, okay, based on the National Register house on Ward Road, we know.
Well, it might make more sense to look in that area, because that area between Bloomington and Nashville, that the road was not yet the place to go. Most people took the railroad to Trevelac and then Helmsburg and took the train into Nashville. 46 was not sure to go to, yeah. It's tough.
So I don't know if the top part of that is the price of the land, what he paid for the land, and then what's at the bottom is the tax assessments. Like if you go down a little further, it shows the assessments, which is the $12 to $30 is 150% jump. 53 to 180 is what is that? 240% jump. although the dollars are bigger, when you start looking at Simpson Skirvin, it's almost 20 years later, the percentages are still high, even though the dollars are lower when you're looking at Mr. Allen.
Right.
Um,
Do you know when the B and B was established?
When the Airbnb, when they turned it into a bed and breakfast.
Oh.
I'm not sure. I think
No, we honestly, we haven't really looked that, kind of in that area of the
Well,
bed and
that's what I'm
breakfast.
saying.
Not-
It's 50 years old. If it was in 1974.
yeah, so it might be interesting to see. I don't know if our
Well-
phone books.
that's 1874, not 19.
Southern Comfort.
Yeah, we're talking now, because for us, old enough is 50 years old. So we're zooming back into the 1970s and saying, okay, well, 1974 was 50 years ago.
Still eligible.
Was it operating as a bed and breakfast in 1974? Or was it not until 1977 when the Taylors bought it? But it is a good point. That's when bed and breakfast really took off as a concept, or had a boom.
I think we could probably get that just from the GIS tax records, probably my guess, if we can figure out who, since those are much more recent.
I don't know if the county would have regulated that, or to what degree they would have regulated that at the time, or to what degree people would have reported it at the time.
I wonder if they show up on Elevate.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That might show up in the more recent tax record.
Yeah.
Well, I know that when we looked at the Owens house, the records of that B and B were there.
Mhm.
So I would assume that was the same, not the same time period.
Good point.
So that's definitely something to consider as well.
The petitioners in this update pinned down their own ideas of what of the criteria they were meeting for the historic preservation. So I'm gonna scroll back up to that. Lots of pages. Fast scrolling for those online, it can be busy.
If you didn't take your Dramamine.
Okay, so we have, and these, the bold ones here on this page are what the petitioners, after their most recent research has found, believe that are qualifying for the HP overlay. So it sounds like there's still some discussion that the HP board would like to have. If you are interested in continuing that discussion while more research is done, then it would require a continuance of this petition. Otherwise, we're looking for a recommendation to push this rezone petition on to the next stage, which would be to the Plan Commission, and then ultimately the county commissioners.
I'm gonna have to defer to those with more experience.
I believe, it's my understanding that as the petition moves through, at least to the Plan Commission stage, it's still very much a living, breathing document. It is only once the Plan Commission provides a recommendation is the report frozen in time.
Okay.
At least the report is. More information can come in, but it would be addendums to the commissioner's packet where this report would be for their final review.
I would very much like to help them move forward. But I'm also saying that knowing that there's probably some additions and slight modifications we might want to make before anything is set. That's where I am on it.
I would agree. I'd recommend that it move forward, but that we get a few changes before planning
gives you this final stamp.
Okay.
Like clarifying the architectural style, since that's one of the criteria that they're recommending.
Mhm.
I'd like to have them nail down architectural style,
Okay,
but the age of the house is good.
okay.
Cool.
So if we were to go, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, just so I know, what items we would need to clarify. The construction method, again, is conjecture, so I don't know. Either one, I guess, would be fine. I don't know that we have a strong opinion other than just a guess as to that time period of construction. So what would you suggest, that we research on the construction side?
You talking about Praise Central Hall?
Yeah, so, and I'm trying to find resources right now on it. Central Hall is about the most general search terms you can have in a Google search. Especially when Google has defaulted you to cursed Yahoo. But that would just be my one thing with, iHouses tend to be a little bit taller and skinnier. So like I mentioned, it would be like your house plus your house on top. And we have a lot of those around the county. And part of the reason why it even matters in the grand scheme of things is I actually think that Central Hall is more of a rarity in Monroe County than iHouse. You can't throw a rock without hitting an iHouse, and you can't throw a rock without hitting a skirvin. So both of those things about your house would be very common things to have a skirvin involved and for it to be an iHouse. But I think it might be a Central Hall just on the basis of the number of stories and those other symmetrical features that are very similar to iHouse features. So you're definitely in the right neighborhood. But possibly with an actually more unique structure than what you're giving yourselves credit for.
Okay, well, it gives us something to look into the Central Hall design, which I'm not familiar with, so.
Yeah.
That's
And then
good.
the other thing would be that bed and breakfast, if we can find out any more about recently in the recent history, when it first became a bed and breakfast, because as Susan mentioned, that would be kind of the era of the rise of the bed and breakfast. And if that happens to align with our 1974 or earlier, that's great for us to talk about its role in the county. If it's less than that, I still feel like it's worth a mention. I mean,
Okay,
because it will be 50 years old at some point in time. We all get there eventually. So
It doesn't negate the oldness of the house, but it provides another
Twist.
layer or a focus for such a petition.
okay.
We have people forgetting the recent past. Qualifies as well.
Well, that's great.
and Central Hall may also be called Central Passage. So
Okay.
so possibly look into both Central Hall and Central Passage.
And how do you, how would you definitively do that? I'll ask that question for them. I mean, we've walked it.
Yeah, I mean,
It
that,
feels like a central passage.
yeah, it feels like a Central Passage and it quacks like a Central Passage. So that's why I think it's a Central Passage. But a lot of times the architectural styles also are going to travel with people. So for example, if everybody involved in deciding about the house and building the house was from a certain area, then it makes sense sometimes for it to be one thing over another. Like here in town, we have the very Pennsylvania style Wiley House. And basically anybody who knows their architecture will go, that house is not a typical Indiana house. But I want to make sure with yours that as we're looking at it, should look over at the Ord Road House, because the Ord Road House is our other one that might be Central Passage. And it would be similarly on the extremes of the county. Out on a road that would have been less traveled. Let's see. But yeah, I definitely want to support you in moving forward. So I don't want a whole bunch of little technicalities to slow you down.
Okay.
But I think if you can get a hold of, and this is where the Indiana room might be helpful, if you could get a hold of the phone book or directories and see if there's a way that you can find your address. Or look up the Taylors or look up some of those people and see if they have like bed and breakfast listed with that address. Or look
Okay.
through the yellow pages and see if the yellow pages, these are those types of resources that are actually really good for that time period and become less good as we get closer to the modern era, because who lists with yellow pages anymore? The seventies would have been a great time to list your bed and breakfast with the yellow pages.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to add another note, again, not holding up the process, but just something to add before it gets finalized at planning. So you make the argument that because Mr. Allen was a Civil War veteran, that's the significant contribution to Monroe County history. I think the house existing itself in a farmland, that's more significant, I think, than just him being a veteran. So article number 1, I think
Okay.
the existence of farmlands and the increase of farming in Monroe County is a really important part of our county's history. And
Okay.
to me, that's more significant than just a veteran built this house.
Okay.
So I would add in, and if you need some language, you can email us and we can help you. But yeah, just contributing to the fabric of Monroe County's our agricultural history.
Okay.
Yeah, if you were to look, so the other property that I'm thinking of, and I've pulled it up on GIS, is 110 North Ord Road, OARD. It's out there by the airport, and it's one of our National Register properties.
Okay.
And it is, I believe, a central passage or central hall.
Okay.
And so you'll notice the symmetry is the same, where it's 2 windows on one side with a door and the 2 windows on the other. About the same size, yeah. So it's got a little bit more of an L wing off the back, but the picture that you'll see if you use the county GIS will be of that structure. I can't remember how deep yours goes. Do you remember how many feet deep your?
I don't have the,
I think the drawing is in their packet, but I don't have it in front of me.
I think the floor plan may be in the packet.
Okay, yeah.
I just don't have it. I don't have it right in front of me.
No, that's okay. So those are things that we look at when we're trying to figure out the style is, if it's 16 feet or 32 feet or, things like that. So that's just me getting into the weeds on style. But like I said, I want to make sure that we're helping you guys move forward with this because we appreciate your energy, work, enthusiasm, research, all that. And that's what keeps us going on these things. So we appreciate that. So looks like Drew is looking up the next time that this board will meet.
So I will verify your trajectory on this path here.
Okay.
For new petitions that just came in, they will follow this blue line, the stark blue line, which will put them at the Plan Commission meeting September 26th. But since yours has been heard so many times already, it might be eligible for the August 20th meeting.
Okay.
And that still provides a check-in, at least from this board on the 19th, which is the day before. So that could be a moment of just as an administrative item, since it's been moved on from this board. It's just like, hey, do you have any more questions before you go to Planning Commission? How did you do on your research? So forth.
Okay.
On this,
We do need to take a vote to formally pass it on with whatever recommendation you would like to suggest to the Plan Commission for it to go on to either the August 20th or September 26th. I don't know if you have the ability to choose which of those dates, but I will verify that.
Okay.
a motion to approve their nomination for HP overlay with the recommendation that they add information that we talked about, and we'll check in with them on the next date, and we're available by email for questions.
I second that motion.
I third. All right.
I know that was a lengthy thing for you to try to summarize when you type this up.
Well, we appreciate it. We thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
So now I will call the roll. There's been a motion and a second to forward this on with a positive recommendation to the Monroe County Plan Commission. with the note that additional information be added as discussed during tonight's meeting and a check-in on the August 19th meeting as an administrative item of this.
19,
board.
it's 19.
Susan Snyder Salmon,
Yes.
Polly Root Sturgeon,
Yes.
Don Hall,
Yes.
Debbie Reed,
Yes.
Devin Blankenship,
Yes.
Don Maxwell.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you both.
All right.
Very much.
Thank you.
All right. We thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
Talk to you soon.
Then a nice note to Lee. He does a good work finding that text.
Yeah, we appreciate his help. He's been what he found for us is just pretty great, pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Moving, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so next we have new business. And after this item, we just have work plan updates. So this is the Sunset Hill HP overlay rezone. It is 28 individual parcels totaling about 17.82 acres in Perry Township, Section 6. And it is at several addresses. I'm not gonna read off all the addresses. Susan Brackney is in attendance this evening. She's the lead petitioner and has been compiling all this information. There are some petitioners on this list that you see tonight that are in error. New people have purchased these properties since the GIS updated. So I've been working with Susan. I'll have that updated for you the next time that you see this, or if it goes to the planning commission, I'll have it updated. So here are all the parcel numbers. And it is a rezone request to add the HP overlay to these specific properties. Several different zoning districts across this area. It's mostly chapter 833 zones, single dwelling residential 3.5, single dwelling residential 3.5 / Pro 6, and multifamily residential 13. The comprehensive plan has it designated as Makua mixed residential. And Susan provided a very detailed PDF report. It's included in the packet. I can pull it up on the screen. And she also has a presentation to show you all this evening as well. That's a part of that packet or that sub packet that's in the meeting packet. There are several sites within the selected parcels that are listed on the SHAR database. At least 11 individual parcels, but there are, I believe, at least 15 individual structures that are listed as contributing our database. Let's see here. Only one of the properties I was able to find in the Monroe County Interim Report, 1989, and that was 705 South Quarry Lane as an American Foursquare circa 1920. And of course, we have all the standard information here about the HP overlay from chapter 810. Here we'll have the location map. I also added a table of all the addresses and parcel numbers. The pink are the contributing resources. The one down here at the bottom, 828 South Quarry Lane. That didn't pop up in Shard, but that's because there's also another address that this property is associated as, which is 2001 South Quarry Lane, and that does appear in the Shard database. So I will update this one as well. So that will be a pink resource also. This row of properties here, 717 to 725, that's all on one property, and those are all the shotgun style.
Smaller,
They're very small.
yeah, they're not shotgun, but they're something else.
Okay, I don't know.
They're Foursquare.
And little cracker box ones.
They're really.
Yeah, they're painted really bright
Yep,
colors.
those are the ones.
Cute as a button.
So those are all listed here. It's under one property. But it is, let's see, it's 5 separate resources on one property. Here's the location map. All the red parcels are the parcels that are involved. And then on this next page, the highlighted red parcels with the blue outlines, those are the ones, including this one, because I missed that one. Those are the ones that have the contributing resources in the shard database. This long, tall rectangle here, that's the one that has those colorful houses all around. Just give you some lay of the land. Here's the zoning map. It's more planning related than anything. Site conditions, as I stated, is about a total of 17.82 acres across 28 parcels. Sites are on Corey Lane, West Piper Lane, South Anna Lee Lane, West Wiley Street, and West Bloomfield Road. None of the petition sites are in the Lake Monroe watershed. There's no floodplain. There are some evidence based on the contours of sinkholes throughout the petition sites.
Monroe County.
Highway and stormwater did not share any comments at this stage. Comprehensive plan here, as I stated. This is just the findings of fact. Petitioner's letter is included in the packet. It's also included in her sub packet that's within this report as well. And I won't go into the details of this because I'm sure Susan will. Let's see. She did point out the main topics that they believe are contributing as part of the criteria, and that's the significant persons portion of the names Shaw, Rogers, Mitchell, etc. As well as broad patterns within the county as a working class village and vestige of Monroe County manufacturing, as well as the distinctive characteristics of the period, directly referring to the supplemental farms. Okay, so this is where the petitioner's report begins. So I can pull open the presentation from Susan if you are open for her input.
Betcha.
Okay. It's open.
Just so you know, there's actually a lot more detail in your packets than, I'm not gonna kill you with detail up here. I'm gonna give you the broad strokes. Hope that's all right.
Great.
Do people usually go up there?
Oh, you can sit up here, or you can do it from back there too.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
What you're most comfortable.
Try really hard not to go too.
It is a small screen, so.
I have trifocals. My eyes are distorted.
Mine weren't, I got them fixed.
Oh, that's good idea.
Yeah, if you alter the original structure, Don.
Okay, well, I'm Susan Brackney and I live in Sunset Hill. So you can keep going to the next.
Where's home in that area?
Oh, 1808 West Piper Lane.
Okay.
Is there a way to make it fit on one page? Maybe
It's
that's
a little
pretty
smaller,
good.
yeah.
That's better. So when I think of historic preservation, I think of fancy pants houses with lots of doodads and gingerbread, and I think that someone with money and time and expertise is going to champion those properties. We don't have this. But Sunset Hill is historic and important. And there's a good quote there. Maybe you can look at that. It gave me hope when I read that. I thought, oh, maybe there's a chance for us.
Sure.
So you can think of it as an early working class village. Its residents worked in nearby quarries and in many of the county's now defunct factories, actually. Additionally, these properties originally were set up to accommodate supplemental or incidental farming and livestock. I started on this endeavor back in May of 2023. I have talked to lots of my neighbors to make sure they even want to do this, to make sure they really understand what's involved. And a lot of them, well, I don't know what percentage, but there are a lot of them who are older and who have lived there for longer than I've been alive. And so I took some oral histories from some of them. These are some of the other resources that I've employed because I don't normally do this. And for what it's worth, I am simultaneously working on state and national register. So that bulletin up there is number 30 or 31, and it was hugely helpful because I had never even heard of vernacular landscape before I started this. So that red box, those three, you guys have seen that to death. Those are the ones that I think probably apply. So you can go on to the next thing. So early maps, that star, I don't know if you can see that star up there. Is that's my house, kind of. That's where it is. So, but seminary lots 179, 180, 185, and 186 were the basis for Sunset Hill. And then down below, that's just kind of a magnified view of the area. Spoiler alert, you'll see Bloomington Fresh Stone Company is a stone's throw away, huh? And so keep going. You can go to the next slide. So my first significant person is Charles Gilbert Shaw. Have you heard of him, anybody? Oh, okay, good. I hadn't heard of him, but I don't really do this thing all the time. He's the nephew of Lyman Emery Shaw, who was a big time photographer, and then he went into his, uncle's footsteps and did his own thing and advertised to death and was pretty much the photographer around here. And a lot of what we have, thank goodness, on record is because of him. He was the photographer for the Arbutus and the Gothic yearbook. He photographed hundreds of homes and buildings throughout Monroe County over a while until he died kind of early in his 50s, just sort of slumped over and had a heart attack, which was incorrect.
Do you know where his archives are kept? Are they at IU?
They are in Mathers, but then I think Mathers turned them over to,
The archives.
I think, hold on.
Probably
It's in your
And
packet.
I think the History Center has some.
They do.
Yeah, it's.
And some of the limestone photograph collection. He took those photos.
Yeah, so something kind of neat about it too, you can scroll just a little bit. He built that in 1924. He and his wife lived there. And then later it became the Allen Funeral Home, but I think maybe before that it was the County Courthouse Annex even. So it's been a lot of things, but that's not why we're here, so keep going. Those are some of his ads. I mean, you could not swing a dead possum and not hit some of his ads. They were everywhere. He was the Ken Nunn of photography. So now we have, by now he's doing pretty well. So in 1917, he and his business partner, who you might have also heard of, Charles M. Costner, another photographer, bought seminary lots 179 and 180. But Costner and his wife were a bit unlucky in that in January 1919, they died from influenza.
That was the.
Yeah. So Shaw and his wife bought them out, bought the rest of, the interest in 179 and 180 and 185 and 186. Huzzah, Sunset Hill's coming. So April 7th, 1921, Shaw and his wife quarrelly divided it up into parcels. And I have a big printout of them if you want to try and see them, but they're not very good. So I redid that so you can kind of see better what it is. There's 15 of them. And let's see, sure I'm not missing anything I want to tell you. Well, over the next several years, the Shaws would sell these off to various people. So you can scroll a little bit more.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Do you know what size each of those plots was?
It's in the legal description. And it might be in this. I don't remember exactly, but that gives you a clue though. So Joseph Brown bought lots 1 and 2. Joseph Hendricks, number 9. I found almost all of them. Freeland Koontz is the one I really hardly care about. He bought the north half of 6, which is 9. Fred Huff is Fred Huff Senior. Fred Huff Junior was one of the winningest football coaches in Bloomington High School history.
Absolutely.
He won 20 seasons out of 23.
And our daughter is named after his daughter.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
So that gives you an idea of, okay, so they held on to it for a bit. They called it Sunset Hill. They parceled it. Now let's look at the name. Sunset Hill. So I did these oral histories, and so many people I talked to said, oh, well, it's because we're the highest elevation in the county. Well, trust but verify. So I looked at the elevation map, and well, we maybe not be the highest, but we're high-ish. But then I told somebody just the other day, I said, well, that wasn't quite right because it's the elevation map. She said, no, it's Sunset Hill was the highest hill you could see from the courthouse. Oh, why didn't you say that? So, okay, so if you stand in the courthouse and you look west, there's our hill and there's the sunset and it's very picturesque, and I can see a photographer calling it that, couldn't you? So maybe, but okay, let's keep going. Annalee Lane meets Annalee Shaw. That's one of his daughters. Corey Lane, they all said, oh, well, he named him after both his daughters. But I don't get Corey Charlotte, nickname Corey, no. But I do think maybe the wife, Coralie, maybe they called her Corey for short. And maybe Charlotte said, Dad, you're such a nerd. I don't want a road named after me. So maybe.
Or she was the second born.
I don't know, but anyway, this just goes to show you that he had an indelible mark on this part. So let's keep going. Let's do some more people because he's not the only one. You've heard of him, Ralph Rogers. So his first independent endeavor was Bloomington Crushed Stone Company, which was right by Sunset Hill. It employed many people from Sunset Hill, especially they lived on Wiley Street. And when I was just sitting here during your regular business, I had another like crazy aha moment. Right off of Wiley Street, there's this little road with a sign that says Berry. And no one uses it anymore. And no one knows why it's called Berry. But then, when I was just rereading the obit that's in here for Ralph Rogers, it says during the late 1920s, Rogers formed a partnership with Harry Berry to operate the Bloomington Crushed Stone Company. So maybe the Harry Berry guy, what a name, took that over, and that's why they called that little street Berry. I don't know. But the Bloomington Crushed Stone Company, if you scroll a bit more down, there is its fancy address, Adams between 2nd and 3rd. That's the 1927 to 28 city directory. Boy, it was hard to nail down exactly where is that, but
Stretch.
it's a big stretch. So on this map, not a great map, but you can kind of see, that's in your packet too. So you'll be able to see Sunset Hill is over to the left and Bloomington Crushed Stone is over to the right. And there were other quarries around there too, for what that's worth. There's an aerial view from 1949 underneath. It's kind of interesting. But you can, let's see, keep going. Well, and for what it's worth, there's still a lot of vestiges of this stuff everywhere in my area. Really nice dimensional limestone walls and porches and steps, and that's Wiley. And that is their road still. It's crushed stone, real narrow. And off to the right, by that bush kind of, is Berry. And I just totally ignored Berry because everyone ignores Berry, but I gotta stop ignoring those things because even that might matter. So I thought, okay, I want to make sure, I want to see how many stone mill workers were there in my area. So I looked at the 1940, 1950 census. And there were stone mill people and there were Ralph Rogers people, but then it got bigger. Now, if corporations are people, then can we also add RCA, Johnson's Creamery, Showers Brothers, and Indiana University to my people? Because these people who lived here were the backbone of those organizations. They were the janitors. They were the plumbers. They shoveled coal to heat the university. They weren't fancy people. They didn't have gingerbread. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they were the people who made everything else possible.
They made Monroe County.
It's the backbone of the county.
More of them than anybody else.
And I just love the idea of, because when I went and talked to my neighbors and I told them what I want to do, they just looked at me like, what? The things on there, that I saw in the, wait, here we go. Yeah, okay, on that census. So it says Sunset Hill on the left. In fact, I had a block party and I had these out and I started reading off names and the older residents were like, well, he lived there, she lived there. Because the addresses, exact addresses aren't here, but when I cross-checked them with the people at my block party, they were like, that house, that house, that house, which was cool. So Lotus Minnick is on there. So just make a mental note, Lotus Minnick. Okay. One of the jobs on there was a service station. He owns a service station and runs a service station. So scroll up a little bit.
So
That's the service station.
and we know where it is.
Well, I wish I did, because somebody moved it.
Yeah, it's just sitting there getting old.
Wouldn't it be nice to move it back?
Yes, it would.
Okay, so now,
You don't have to give it to us.
there's also a, that's just an example. You see that house with that weird circle? Those are two front doors. That house is not one of my houses that's in my list, but it's a good example of what you'll find in the neighborhood. I can tell you that the door on the left went to the beauty parlor. Some of those had like 4 exterior doors. And you had men in bunk beds and sleeping rooms. And in order for them to not cross and wake everybody up, you would just go out this door or that door or that door and all of a sudden be outdoors. So the houses have some interesting door configurations and other things that are all, kind of, anyway. Oh dear, I'm really going too long. Okay. So this is also a place for supplemental farming. Remember I said the name Lotus Minnick? That second ad down, for sale, 5-year-old Jersey cow, general good butter cow, 6 weeks old heifer calf by side, Lotus Minnick, Sunset Hill. These people were laborers. He was a hod carrier and a laborer, but he also had cows. He also farmed. And that's important. This was not an accident. For sale, a few acre farms in the Sunset Hill addition left. A fine investment, no tax, no interest. Get busy if you want one. That yellow looking thing is one of the city directory pages, and the Chamber of Commerce described Bloomington as a thriving rural population, It went on to say the soil is productive, yada, yada, yada. It supplies the community table with a variety of food in volume to ensure comfort and freedom from worry. Our residents were working class people who did a lot of their own livestock and food and canning and preserving. So they had freedom from worry. And this was a much more common way of life. And the interesting thing about my neighborhood is we still do this. So we have freedom from worry. So you're, that's one of my hens. Yeah. So anyway, there's a few more ads. Now I thought this ad down here was funny. For sale, house in city, fine location, might trade for property in Sunset Hill. I liked that. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. Keep going. Oh, yeah, here are some, what do you call these? Assets? I forget what the word is, but
Contributing structures.
I guess so, yeah. So this is an old barn. These are some old outbuildings. That one has an interesting limestone base. They're all over the place. This is a kind of what's going on right now. That's somebody's beehive and fruit tree and eggs. So people are gardening and still living the same way. Not much has changed around there, to tell you the truth, and it's partly because folks don't have the money to change much, and also because they don't really care to. This picture could have been shot ages ago, but it was just the other day. My neighbor still uses her clothesline. This is the same lady who has a quilting bee at her house every Tuesday. And there's another guy, much younger, using his clothesline, and you can't really see that, but that's Minnie the pig, and she lives down there. She see that? She's not food, she's a pet. So, some more significant people, okay? Harley and Ben Mitchell. Harley Mitchell opened the Sunset Hill Feed Company. And that building that you see there, that was just from the other day. It's still there. It's kind of just like frozen like Han Solo right now. It's not in my list of buildings. Boy, would I like it to be, but it's not right now. Harley and his son Ben had the county's last operating feed mill, and the folks in Sunset Hill bought their food for their livestock there and their seeds and their stuff that they needed for their gardens. And the Mitchells also built all those little buildings, the 5 that you like. He built this. And they also lived in Sunset Hill and had some more of their relatives there. So there's just an ad for molasses. You mix it into feed. So you can keep going. Those are the little houses that he built. He just had them as rentals. 1959, I believe. Those are the oldest. Those are the oldest in my set of homes. So Sunset Hill vernacular landscape, Susan's new vocabulary here. This is my lot from overhead. This is characteristic of all of the homes. So that's why I hope you think of this all as hanging together, because it hangs together. They're modestly sized. My house is like 850 square feet, situated in the front with a big lot, comparatively speaking, so that you can have livestock and farm and timber. There's a shade tree and trees that demarcate the property lines. They're mostly still there. So when you're in the neighborhood and you look all around, you feel like you're still back in time. You don't see a casino looming over you or anything weird. It's just like you feel like you're back then. Keep scrolling. There's an example of every little house has one of those humongous shade trees. And there's some, on that right side, you see demarcation of property lines. So let's keep going. Present day from above. I'll just let you look at that for a minute. You just see, there's not a lot of that left, right? And That's partly why,
Got some space.
that's probably why I hope that you'll see that in addition to the age and architectural styles of many of the homes, there is a vernacular landscape that we think should be counted as a historic site as a whole. So let's see what else is on this slide. Oh, yeah, okay. Basic home ages range from the 20s to 1959, mostly California bungalow, but we do have a Foursquare and one Cape Cod, I think, and probably others that I'm just not good at this stuff. So materials include local brick and dimensional limestone. Incidentally, there's one local brick house that the lady didn't get in touch with me fast enough, but the man was a mason. There's a kiln in the way in the backyard. He dug the clay and fired the brick and built the house, and the kiln is still there. Okay? She wants to be in it, but she missed her deadline, so maybe another time, I don't know. But that's the kind of thing we have. As I mentioned, the homes are mostly unchanged. Among the total number of homes included, 15 are listed in the contributing in the SHAR database. But I want you to see something else. Keep going. So most purple dots are, this is for Anna Lee. So, should Anna Lee. Yeah, that's Anna Lee. So if it has a check mark, then it's in my application, but if it doesn't, then it's a contributing, but it's not in my application. So you get the idea. And there's Corey Lane, all those purple dots. 4 of them are in my application, but a lot of other purple dots around there. And Bloomfield Road, so down here, we have the red dot is this guy. It's gone, but maybe he'll come back. 2 houses listed on West Bloomfield. One of them is on the application. And Piper Lane and Wiley. 2 of my Wiley houses are purple dots. There are 4 more that are. And for what it's worth, I'm working on getting more purple dots. I want a purple dot. This is my house. It does not have a purple dot. Although the GIS says 1899, I figured it out. It's 1932. So this is, a humble little place. It was likely developed by Freeland Kuntz, who was a businessman, very successful, also had a lot of ads. He sold all kinds of junk. It's an agricultural spot. It's a livestock spot. Oh, it was also formerly owned by the Mitchells, Ben, the son of Harley and his wife. So let's see what else we've got. I think it's almost over. Oh yes, here's something else about my particular property. I have almost a half an acre and a lot of it is planted in over 20 different kinds of Indiana native grasses and forbs. I've put a prairie back in. This is the 2nd year. The 3rd year should be glorious. I'm pretty happy with the 2nd year. So, I think to myself, this might be what it kind of looked like before we messed everything up. So I wanted more biodiversity, and this looks like the old Home Finder publication. But these are all the homes in this application, kind of how they hang together. And the individual properties are in your packet. I did not go that crazy here. Let's see what else is left. A couple more things and then it's over. These are just some more vestiges. We've got those rural mailboxes. People still use them. That thing on the right, I didn't know what it was, but I bet you do. This will be fun.
Probably held a mailbox.
Yes,
Drop box.
a little brown one with a slot that you would put your mail in instead of the big blue ones. That's still there. That's a water pump, and that's somebody's old clothesline. But there's just tons of stuff like that still hanging out. This is one of my favorite things, what you won't find. streetlights, sidewalks. It's that dark. I took that shot the other night about 10 o'clock. It's that dark. We have darkness. It's very country out there. Oh, and this is my wish, my dream. I made this up. It doesn't.
Looks good.
Since the 1920s, neighbors in the Sunset Hill Addition routinely raised livestock and crops to supplement incomes. Still do, earned at nearby quarries and stone mills. Sunset Hill is also the site of Monroe County's last operating feed mill. So I'm trying to see how far I can take this. I'd love to get listed with the state and nationally, because there's not a lot of this left, and when it's gone, it's gone. There's just some more pictures from around the neighborhood. And thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you.
I did not mean to go this long.
Thank you for your.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Very nice.
And I'm willing to answer any questions and also take you around if you want to see things.
So my question is, so you've been very clear on which houses, are charred and which ones neighbors have said yes on. As far as the proposed district, how big is the proposed district?
I could see it being as big as that square.
Okay. And we have that square on the
Yeah.
Yes.
here.
Yes.
And then is the mill technically in the city?
No, it is,
It's not?
no, it's not. And I suspect that if we found a way to help that fellow make money, and as I understand it, I believe that he knows of and was fond of Mitchell's. So if we could find a way to help him, make money as some kind of investment on the use of the property and honor the Mitchells, I think he might be okay with it. But I'm not really sure. I'm talking out of turn here. But I don't think that necessarily it would be a disaster for them.
Refresh everyone's memory. Who owns the mill now? Please.
It's in the GIS as Bryan Rentals Inc.
Bryan Rentals.
Inc.
And at this point, they haven't committed to the project?
I think we probably need to have a involved conversation with the stakeholders. Yeah. And as far as, I just had probably 13 or 14 neighbors that just didn't get back to me or weren't home. It's a hard time of year, people are on vacation. So this is what I was able to do. Cause I also want to, I don't want to dally. I feel like I've been dallying. I feel like, I've been at this since last May. I did my oral interviews like in January or, I just, this is how long it has taken. Like I said, I don't have money and time and expertise, so this is the best I've been able to do in the time that I've had, and I don't want to spend a great deal of time trying to make a humongous blob of properties, I feel like it's pretty representative of the area. Maybe in the future, there could be a second or third round, adding folks after they decide, oh yeah, I do have time to think about this now. I didn't before,
Well, you've definitely done a deep dive into everything you've done so far, like to see articles and to see, connections between things. I would love to unleash you on several neighborhoods around the County of Bloomington. Because it's really good. As far as in depth, because I think one of the things so traditionally we as a board, we designate a lot of individual properties. So that's what we are most accustomed to. And we generally designate properties as, you know, people come to us and they say we want to designate our property. One thing that I believe is within our authority to do, though we don't do often, is to designate something that includes properties of property owners that have not come forward to us to say that they want to designate the property. So that's part of where my question was in the size, and kind of scope with that. That being said, any level of protection is, you know, great for moving forward. And I'm happy to hear you say that you're looking at both local, or you're looking at all three, local, state, and national. And part of that is because you know as well as we do that you are in the what the city likes to call the urbanizing area, I think is their preferred term now. They didn't like the fringe.
They don't call it fringe anymore?
They
They don't
call it
call it
fringe.
2 Mile Fringe.
Yeah, it's urbanizing area or the AFA. I think you're actually AFA areas for annexation. Is how the city thinks of it. I would love to see anything that we do with you or anything moving forward, helping ensure protection, whether you're technically part of the city or not. And so I think the fact that you're operating at those 3 levels, also help with that process too. And as we alluded to earlier with the gas station, I would love to see if we are able to get you designation, what it might take for us to see if that could be returned to somewhere in the neighborhood, whether it's near its original site. I know part of that had to do with road widening and maybe some other projects going on right there. But that was a landmark for sure of the neighborhood.
What, it's on Kinzer Pike?
No, this is off Bloomfield Road.
No,
Where's the gas station? It's over off of Vernal Pike.
Vernal Pike.
If you, kind of in that low area on the west side of the highway, if you look over to your left, you'll just see it on the back of a truck.
But I know where it is, but if you want to see it, it is around.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go visit it.
that's
That's awesome. Don't hook it up to your tires. But if you do. But yeah, no, I think this is really great, and especially looking at, you know, the houses of normal people. And you're coming to us with the same perception we would love for people to make that transition. It used to be, did a president live here? And then it was, did a president spend the night here? And then it was like, are these people normal people? And so I think looking at what you've provided is a really good example of that these are the backbone of Bloomington industry and things. And then my full disclosure is that I mentioned to some of you before, 804 is my in utero home. I was never on the outside there, but so yeah, I don't know what steps are we hoping to
Make a
take
motion
tonight?
now?
I have 2 questions before we make a motion, if I could. So you said you weren't an expert, but I think you did an expert job at this. This is like this is a model application, really. This is tremendous.
Fantastic.
2 questions. You had the census from, I think, 49 and 50.
40 and 50.
What made you choose those dates?
Those were the dates that I had access to where I could drill down to just get the exact Sunset Hill neighborhood. I had like I forget what the code is, but I looked online to find other years, and those were the only years that what I wanted was available.
Okay.
To that degree of this guy's name, and he had this many kids living with him, and this is what he did. That's why.
It's nice that those are connected to people who still have living memories of those folks. If you wanted to add anything connected more to the limestone mentioned industry, 1929 was the peak for production for the limestone industry. So you could maybe get like the 29 or 30 census just to see how many folks were there. But that's just if you wanted to add anything of that. And then my other question was when your third point of having like the rural nature, the agriculture, being a, distinctive characteristic of a period. I think that's just, this is for the board members too. distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction. That's referring to built structures, right? So would her argument that the rural nature of the landscape, I don't know that it fits that. I think it's more the number one, the broad patterns of the county history.
I think it'd be broad patterns of county history, but there are the little supplemental structures.
Yeah.
That would probably be part of that rural aspect. So I think that's where I tied in, as I tied in with structures.
Yeah, so just clarifying that like the existing outbuildings, those are the contributing structures for that number, whatever, number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to piggyback on what Holly said about the limestone. Is there anything left along the line before you get to the new medical complex that one can see like large stacked cut limestone or?
I don't
That would be awesome if that was there.
The thing about this that I also like is that it's not the dimensional limestone as much as it is crushed. And so he did Indiana highways and other state highways, and he had something to do with the atomic.
Dr. Brown Brothers.
Yes, and it was that crushed stone right from the neighborhood that did that. So that's a national level.
Can you document that?
Yeah, it's in here, and it's all right already here.
And the other question I had is I noted throughout all of this, I see that Julie Ketman is on the list.
She's no longer, she sold to Eric Gold, and that will be fixed. But Dr. Kevin lived there, the veterinarian.
Well, but because that business was huge in Bloomington, I think it's a contributing element.
That's like 500 Corey Lane, and I talked to that guy.
It's outside?
No, it's not in my application. He said he'd think about it, and he didn't really get back to me about that building. I know what you mean, but it's a veterinary clinic.
And the building itself with the glass block.
Yes.
It is a contributing piece, whether or not they want to be on it.
I mean, there's a lot of
Can't take it out of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So one thing I don't want to cause is a problem for my neighbors who don't want to do a certificate of appropriateness, or I don't know. I don't want to cause anybody a lot of consternation. I don't know. I'm not sure how to handle that. But a lot of folks, no one really overtly said, I hate this idea. They either really liked it and got it right away, or they wanted to chew on it a little bit, you know? So not sure if that helps or not.
2 things I might throw out. I guess. When you're talking about, local, state, or national,
Yeah.
I would really recommend mentioning more about Ralph Rogers, the aggregate stone, the quarries that were there. A lot of them have been filled in, especially the latest. It's right across from where the Farm Bureau building, the great big building. It's not Farm Bureau, it's not quite River Co-op now, but that big green structure right across the street. And the reason why is because Ralph Rogers, the company, they employ so many people in your area. I think that's a key. Secondly, what they've done for not just Monroe County, but the state, as far as building roads, supplying stone, et cetera, et cetera. We could go on all night. Yes, it's big impact. I mean, they were everything for a long, long time. And then they're still, I believe, the number one, one of the top industries in the United States now, based out of Nashville. But that just shows you how important your area was and what was taking place and the birth of it. And I think that would really help. The other thing I'd like to mention is something that just jumps off of this screen to me. is I see your picture, you know, and it's on the screen as well as there. And these homes, if you'll allow me the term loosely, these bungalows, all these wonderful, wonderful, quaint places. It's one of the few places left in Monroe, one of the few places left in Monroe County that you see something like this. Now think about what's happening all over the county, even where the ramp is going into, you know, Arlington Road, 46, all that stuff is just like in a blink of an eye, it's disappearing, and this place is intact. I really keep going. It's good.
It's
going.
easy to hear these little places because by themselves, they don't seem like a big deal. When they hang together,
It's a big deal.
It is a landscape, and that's the important piece of
Fantastic.
it. Another piece of the landscape that isn't really, I didn't hear you mention it, you might have, while I was scrolling ahead, was, that is a karst love affair.
that's one of the reasons we are intact. We've been too much.
Exactly.
trouble. Like a poisonous butterfly.
I mean, but they're stunning in terms of their size.
Yes, they are.
They're huge.
They are.
And Drew had to reference, whoever wrote this up, it may have been you, if it was, I'm sorry. It just loosely refers to that, but it is huge. And it is so big in Monroe County to understand that karst topography in terms of where dimensional stone versus whatever you just
Aggregate.
that we're gonna aggregate. So I think that's a piece of it that is really important, and it piggybacks with the Ralph Rogers as to also talk about if the karst wasn't there, there would be no neighborhood, I think.
It's an archaeological point.
Geological,
Or
yes.
geological,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of really good things going for it, and I think the fact that the city has not annexed it for this long, and for reference back to one of your articles where the homeowner would like to trade for property, Sunset Hill or Arlington, tells you the parallel between those areas.
Chandler's.
Yeah, and so, and I think that really does speak to, you know, the working class, big lots.
Plus it was high,
Yeah.
and Bloomington was a cesspool.
And then I think the Shaw connection, the fact that we have somebody who's contributed, whether knowingly or not at the time, to so much of our local history of what we see and know of the past, being associated with that neighborhood says a lot. I still argue that the Charlotte was the second born, and so no one is named after her. I think it's a wife. If
You think it's a life?
Annalee was the first daughter, it's the wife and the first daughter.
Interesting.
I'd say this is the second born.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's just time frame. It's they have the wife, they have the daughter,
Yeah.
they name things.
Yeah.
They have more kids, never name anything after those kids.
The middle child.
What do we need to do to move this forward?
Do you want to move it forward to the planning commission as it is? You make a recommendation, with a positive recommendation, citing what the petitioner has outlined as their criteria to meet the, requirements.
Can I make that motion? Without saying it all over again.
Yeah, you can say so moved. I just said the complicated question, sorry. One of the things that you mentioned was light. One of the conversations we've had is light. Is there a way in an application to include light level as something that we are protecting?
As a protective element.
Because,
We like protecting from the light.
yeah, so I don't know, is there something that we could have as a metric, as a thing that's in there? So when, say Brian Rentals, for example, decides that they want to build a 700 unit apartment complex with floodlights, we have a leg to stand on.
What's the scenic view shed kind of thing?
And well, and the quality of, I mean, it's one of the things we talked about before was just as far as dark places and, you know, maintaining the character of an area.
One of the layers of another layer I would like to add to the area is international dark sky certification. A person like me can't do that, but an entity like you can. So maybe we could work that out. I don't know.
Yes, the conversation about protecting locally historic designated properties from non-designated properties light is a complicated issue. It's not currently in the historic preservation ordinance. I have not found any language that explains that type of protection. I can dig deeper into that.
Cause I would almost, if there's a way that plus the ongoing conversation of proposed properties for designation versus broader designation, I feel like there's enough to talk about in those two that'd be the only thing that would prevent me from saying, well, let's go ahead and move it forward to the next level is, those are maybe big
I guess I'm
conversations.
confused about it. Like with Maple Grove, you've got a historic district. A lot of the houses aren't
They're not contributing to that.
contributing, but they're still in the district.
They're still in this.
So I'm a little confused about that issue and how that all
Yeah.
works.
That's not a local district though.
It's a state district, but still, it's, the idea is similar where there's properties in it that are not contributing. And so I think that's the thing, and that's where we get into, we'd have to do a parallel with like the city, is looking at, okay, Fluff Mill Road, the Travis Farm. I think there might be something in there about contributing and non-contributing based on a garage structure or something like that.
Yeah.
Or if there's something with Matthews Mansion, with the main house versus the garage, that essentially you can have non-contributing structures within a historic district. But the thing is, when you start messing with those structures, then you're still part of a historic district. So then we still kind of have say on those. And I know she doesn't want to ruffle feathers with neighbors, so I also want to respect that. But I also know it's rare for us to see this size of the thing
Right.
come in front of us. So those would be the only two factors that would make me say if we could sit on it for a month and talk about it some more, maybe, but.
This is that whole it's a living document thing though. I will work quick like a bunny to do what I need to do to make it more, I don't know, airtight as needed.
Yeah.
So.
There is within the HP ordinance, there's discussion within to designate a property, there's like primary and secondary structures. And they have like varying degrees of like protection, like you said, like
Oh,
any types of alterations to primary structures, there's like no doubt it needs like a certificate of occupancy.
so that could be like
But then-
those people who have signed on would be primary.
I believe so, yes, at least if you wanted to, like, you know, put it in a way of all of the contributing properties that are identified on the shard database, those are primary. And then everything else, if it's not on shard, is secondary. Or you could say all the primary structures, no matter if they're shard database confirmed or not, those are all primary structures. And then like, you know, secondary things could include like water pump or the presence of laundry lines, things like that, where there's like, not like you change the laundry line, you need to, like, it's not original laundry line, you're gonna need a certificate of occupancy or appropriateness for that. It's like, no, you just,
Or occupancy.
just put it back, like, just put a new one, you
Yeah.
know, maintain the like character of the area kind of idea.
I guess, and
Um,
I think what you're saying is, would it be possible to say primary are the homes that have signed on
mhm.
and secondary are everything in that square that hasn't
Oh.
signed on? Like, can we still?
Yeah, because that's where you're almost getting into,
Conflict issue.
well, the neighborhood with, in town that did the historic, conservation district instead of preservation district had that whole issue where they thought they could be a conservation district forever and have slightly lighter, it was like preservation light. And so I do wonder, it would be interesting to see what those things are. And like,
Towing the line on designating people who don't come forward, right? That's what we're
right,
talking
right,
about.
so that's, yeah.
Yeah, which we've been,
And so,
Around for a
and
while.
it's a little bit, you know, and like I said, I definitely want to, maintain, you know, the wish to not ruffle feathers, and that's part of it. It's kind of been what we've done, historically as well. But at the same time, it's with a neighborhood that could get annexed, you know, anytime. And so by that nature, we are the gentler force, in that. So it's sort of, you know,
That's true.
you know, it's kind of like what we say from annexation, well, maybe we can.
Then I'll put a notion to postpone just so we can look more information up. But I certainly would approve this application. It's just, or, you know, recommend that it goes forward, but it's just, maybe we could do a little bit more. So that would be my recommendations, to postpone, just so we can look up whether we can designate the square or just the houses you selected.
Yeah.
And similarly to the last one, I can talk with the director about the schedule, meeting schedule, because it's on schedule. This particular petition, as it is sitting where it was approved and not approved, but accepted, it would be going normally to the plan commission meeting in September 26th. But it is also, you know, that's 2 meetings of HP before then.
Yeah.
At least. So there might be.
Your timetable.
There might be some time specifically to, even if you like straight up like quote unquote continue it,
Yeah.
you might still be able to stay on that same meeting schedule once I talk to the director, because the main thing about the meeting schedule is making sure we make public notice. Because once you get to the plan commission stage, letters go out to neighbors, things like that, that warn them that there's a public hearing, and if they want to say that they're mad that their neighbor is getting a certain reservation, they can. Or they want to support it, and maybe they want to jump on the next round, you know.
Want to respect your time, because you put a lot of time into
Yeah.
this, and it's, like you said, you need kind of an end date to.
So,
Yeah.
It'd be better to have these things nailed down here now, you know, or in a couple weeks before we get, and then call the neighbors and we wouldn't have the answers. Yeah.
And then those letters that go out are gonna say rezone, right?
it will say the petition is scheduled for a rezone to add the HP overlay.
Okay.
So that's the way that it will be worded.
So that'd be one of those other things too, in your ongoing communication with neighbors, you know, say that it's a rezone overlay, historic preservation rezone overlay. Because I think a lot of times people open up that letter and they see the words rezone, they're like, what?
Well, even if they see your signs, which are giant red letters that look like your house is poison. If you get them reprinted, you should change the color. They look aesthetic. Even the city variance, they just.
That may be intentional.
Well, if I was thinking that, but I mean, it would be nice if they didn't look quite so dire.
I'll bring that up.
So we can table this to the next meeting, just so we can find out more information, but still kind of keep on the September time.
I think so. I think we can maintain that. I will need a motion for that.
So moved.
A motion to table this to the next meeting, which is in August, specifically August 19th, Monday. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You said it first.
Holly, really.
Did you second?
No.
Seems.
All right, so there's been a motion and a second. I will now call the roll. Holly Sturgeon?
Yes.
Tom Hall?
Oh, I guess.
Debbie Reed?
Just tell me to go.
Yes.
Doug Wilson? Devin Blankenship?
Yes.
John Maxwell?
Yes.
Susan Sires Solomon?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Could be where all the boards.
Did you call Debbie?
Did I call Debbie? Did I call you?
Yeah, you're okay. And I said yes.
It'll be involved on the board so long together that we can.
The audio.
I have a strong yes.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Thank
And
you.
you don't have to be here for the next one. You're welcome to, of course, or if Zoom is more convenient. Okay.
Of course, until,
And bring us anything good you find.
But don't feel like you're obligated if something comes up.
We appreciate your depth of research. I mean, I would love to see that with
Everyone.
every nomination. That's beautiful. I mean, and even just graphically, visually for us to see things like newspaper articles and, things like that. We really appreciate the time and energy you put into that. And it's going to make a big difference in the long run, I think. So thank you so much.
I would give you an A as a history professor.
Thank you.
I would also suggest that you make a copy of any files that you've made and give these to the public library or the history center. Sure. Because it's not research in the entire community.
Yeah, I was gonna do that.
Sure.
I'll take out people's personal information, like owns
Yes,
this house.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna definitely make some things to leave beyond.
One final thing I'll add to about, we have a couple rezone applications, the overlay applications going in right now. And the CDO, the county development ordinance, new one, we're looking at by the end of the year, to hopefully have at least public hearings going, but hopefully by the end of the year being fully adopted. So we're still trying to get that through. And I spoke with the planning director about overlay applications that by the time discussions of the CDO are rolling, there's public hearings, if that overlaps with commissioner decisions for these, it is possible that in the thought of moving things along quickly and being very well-rounded in the decisions, that instead of going to the commissioners, that it just gets rolled into the CDO draft map. So it would just, once the CDO draft gets approved, these just automatically get rolled into it instead of the whole normal process. And that's just because of the timing of everything. So that could be a benefit in speeding things up a little bit. But I wanted to communicate that to you, that is a possibility if things were to, say, if your meeting for the commissioners would be in like November or December, it's possible that it could just be part of the CDO discussion at that time. So. Just an info.
This gas station, one last shot. We have the historic information that came with the removal? Keeper of all data? Is
No,
that
it's not
something that you can pass on to Susan?
I know that it was removed for whatever, the widening of Bloomfield Road or possibly the PUD that's there on the corner. I don't know. Well, it's kind of across from the PUD, I think. So I think it's the widening of Bloomfield Road, and an individual purchased it or was gifted it. And all I know is that it's sitting over where it's sitting. So that's about the extent of what I know.
Okay.
I can't remember if there was like a newspaper article about it at the time or if there was anything.
Well, I know it was in the HT. There were articles. I remember them.
Okay. So I don't know if there'd be a quick and easy way for us to remember when the Bloomfield Road project was.
I tried the Monroe County Library files, the federal files.
Yeah, so,
Awesome.
but yeah, that might be where that lives.
I know that there was a meeting in here once and Randy Cassidy attended and the gas station got brought up and he started talking about it. I think he knows who owns it. Or it obviously knows where it is. As many
It's
others.
not getting any attention where it is.
Yeah, I found it in Google Earth.
Still sitting there.
Still sitting there.
Still,
Whatever that's that.
Well, and those are the types of things and we appreciate you including those other structures like the farm structure and the sheds. Because that's where historic preservation is starting to move is into some of those things that were then previously considered kind of insignificant to historic preservation. So barns, outbuildings. And even things like the small gas station, because it was so small, it was like, oh yeah, that little gas station.
But that gas station required people to work and an owner and people who worked at that gas station moved in this community.
I think the mailbox post, it should say that it's served.
Brown.
Well,
One of the little letter drop box things.
I mean, we preserve the, overall the horse, what is it, the hitching posts and stuff. So, yeah, so it makes sense.
Sure.
It's very utilitarian.
Find it?
I'm just showing the Google image of it.
Yeah.
So where 17th Street crosses over the interstate,
Yes, I would like.
17th turns into Burke, it's just on the right-hand side, as soon as you cross over on the interstate. It'll be in
Which is
side.
analogy I use.
Take 17th, around the circle and then keep going.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't just call me.
I want to tell you what's going on. But yeah.
Act like I
It's like
just want to go to the Y.
Lost Ark of the Covenant. We found it.
Wow.
Okay, there's no more discussion on that piece. We have work plan updates.
It's getting late. Can we say?
Yeah.
There are no updates.
Like this.
I don't think we have, I mean. it's not like
The only
we're just here
update I would
today.
say is I'm asking on Facebook communities for any historic properties where we have existing drive
Brochures.
brochures. What would you like to add?
Yeah.
And I got some good stuff on Maple Grove and I'm working on getting into some other communities. So
Check with Danielle. Because I think she has all those on her computer or something.
Well, Cheryl allegedly did at one point have the Danielle type.
Yeah.
I will check.
Yeah.
I do want to say I had the pleasure of attending the Blast Institute that Polly is a part of. It was very informative, very useful.
Aggregate.
Being up in Monroe County and being able to see behind the scenes of all these places that have normally been out of sight and sometimes out of mind was really good. So, but I highly recommend anybody, that it's a great experience. So.
Well, I'll go for adjournment.
Okay,
Second.
it's.
I want to be in.
Hi.
Thank you, everyone. It's great seeing you.
I starts at 8:30. Real life naked.
We have some good singers today, the. None of photography and.
I know, she's
Thank you, GSD.
got a good one.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Your comment about how we can talk about anything for like hours, that's very true.